In the last session, we talked about how, as Christians, we don't want to be either idle in our work and we don't want to make idols of our work either. But if that's the truth, if we don't want to make work the most important thing in our lives because it simply can't be, and if we don't want to miss God's purposes for us in our work, then what's the right way to think about it? How should we think about our jobs? Well, I think the New Testament says quite a lot about that. In fact, Paul says in a couple of places, Colossians and Ephesians, that whatever work we're doing, we don't just do it for human beings. We don't just do it for human bosses. What we do for the King. See, when you understand it rightly, the gospel of Jesus Christ changes everything. And it's not just our spiritual lives that it changes, it actually changes the way we think about our work. Because when you understand the gospel rightly, it cuts the root of idolatry of our jobs and our lives. Not only that, but it also cuts the root of any temptation we have to be idle in our work, to miss God's purposes for us in the jobs that He's given to us. So how does the gospel do that? How does it change the way that we think about ourselves and about our jobs? Well, there are several ways. For one thing, the gospel changes the way that we think about ourselves. It gives us a new identity. See, once we become Christians, once we're saved from our sins and we're brought from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light by the work of Jesus Christ on our behalf, we're no longer just workers. We're no longer just one of 7 billion people who happen to live on this planet. All of a sudden, we understand that we exist for a reason and a purpose, and with an eternity of praising Him and worshiping Him set out before us. We understand ourselves to be someone different. Not only that, but the gospel also just simply gives us a new pursuit for our lives. We're not just in it for ourselves anymore. We're not just in it for the pleasure that we can get out of life. We're in it for the glory of our King. And that changes the way we think about our jobs. Not only that, but the gospel also gives us a new set of rewards that we're after. So it's not just about the toys that we can get or the power that we can accrue for ourselves. It's not even about the influence that we might be able to exert on other people. All of a sudden, the rewards that are set before us by our King are rewards that far outstrip anything that the world could give us. We're working for eternity, and that changes everything. Once you understand that, you can start to experience a new freedom in your job or in your work. For one thing, you can experience a new freedom to worship God in your work. Now, I'm not talking about singing hymns in the elevator or singing hymns next to your desk, though you might be able to do that. But what I'm talking about is seeing God's glory and seeing God's purposes in all the things that are going on around you. So now, instead of just letting your eyes sort of bounce over the good things that are happening in work, you see those things as good gifts from God. When somebody exercises authority as a boss in a good way, you see that as a good gift of God and even a reflection of His character. When somebody does something kind or when someone helps out a customer in the best possible way, you see that as a reflection of God's character and as a good gift from Him. So you're free to worship God in your work in a way you maybe never have before. Understanding the gospel in this way also frees us up to love and serve other people in a way that we never have before. So all of a sudden, we're not in our work only for ourselves. We're not in it just for what we can gain out of it. We understand that we are there to love and serve other people. That's why the King has deployed us there, to bring glory to Himself through worshiping Him and through serving others. Have you ever thought about what a strange thing it is to actually find a person in the workplace who is truly altruistic and kind? Most of the time, people have agendas, they have things that they're after. Well, you, as a Christian, are freed up by the gospel to be that truly altruistic person. You can be someone who's not in it for yourself, but who's in it to see other people thrive. The gospel frees you up to love and serve other people. Not only that, but understanding the gospel rightly frees you up to do your work with joy and not with worry. I think so many Christians are burdened down by the worry of their work. What's the outcome of this going to be? What is this decision going to lead to in my life? How is my job going to be affected by this or that? Well, if you understand that you've been deployed to where you are by the King, and if you understand that everything in your life is under His sovereign control and under His sovereign care, you can do your work with joy and not have the worry about the outcomes. Just be faithful and do well what the Lord has put into your life to do, understanding that He Himself holds in His hands the outcome of that work. The gospel frees you to work with joy and not with worry. But did you know the Bible doesn't just hold out one grand purpose for your work? It actually holds out a multitude of purposes that the King has for us in our jobs and in our work. Let me just tell you about a few of those. One of the main purposes that the Lord has for us in our work is simply that we would learn to love Him better. He wants us to use our jobs to see His goodness and worship Him because of it. Another reason that God has us in our work, another purpose for which we work, is so that we might learn to love others better. In anybody's job, there are going to be people around them who are simply difficult to love. And yet, as Christians, God calls us to do just that, to love those people with all of our hearts. Another purpose the Lord has for us in our jobs is simply to reflect His character in various ways. Through the use of authority, through creativity, through production, through simply working and doing, we reflect things as God's creatures that God Himself does. You know some other purposes that the Bible holds out as reasons for which God has us in our work? They're things that Christians don't talk about very often, but it's simply to enjoy our work and make money so that we can support a family. You look at 1 Thessalonians, you look at other places in the New Testament, and you see it very clearly, where Paul says that a person should work with his or her hands so that he or she can make money and support a family. That's an important part of why God has us in our jobs too. Finally, one of the other reasons that we work is simply to adorn the gospel of Jesus Christ that we preach. When we do good work, when we're creative, when we, by the use of our own authority, reflect God's character, we are adorning or decorating the gospel that we preach. We're making it make sense to the people around us. If you do your work with excellence and joy, if you wield authority and exercise responsibility in your job in a godly way, then when you turn and talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ, you've sort of paved the path for the people around you to be able to hear it better. In this session, spend some time thinking about why God has you in your job. Why are you there? What are the purposes for which God has put you exactly where you are? Hope you have a good conversation.